6. We're at the live desk where we have been tracking this story since it first broke just after 3 o'clock. A shooter is dead, 2 other suspects in custody. All 3 are U.S. soldiers.
And I'm Brian Sterling. The base in Texas, one of the largest in the world. It is currently locked down, and local people with loved ones there tell us that the phone lines are jammed. They can't get through. This is a map of the complex to give you a sense of just how big Fort Hood is. Let's go live to NBC's Scott Gordon with the very latest.
Good evening. It's still a very fluid situation here at Fort Hood in central Texas. Reporters are being kept outside the front gate as the number of dead and injured continues to rise.
Comes another ambulance.
The U.S. Army now confirms at least 12 people are dead, another 31 wounded in a mass shooting at the massive Fort Hood Army base near Waco, Texas. General Bob Cone confirms 1 gunman is dead and was himself in the Army, as are 2 other suspects in custody.
The shooter was killed. He was a soldier. We since then have apprehended 2 additional soldiers.
An Army spokesman at the Pentagon says the shootings began at a personnel and medical processing center at the base.
It's a terrible tragedy. It's stunning.
President Obama weighed in during a speech in Washington.
My immediate thoughts and prayers are with the wounded and with the families of the fallen and with those who live and serve at Fort Hood.
The Army has not yet released the names of the victims or the 2 soldiers in custody. The big unanswered question right now is the motive. The FBI is sending agents to Fort Hood right now to investigate whether it was terrorism, an attack from within, inside the nation's largest Army post. I'm Scott Gordon reporting live from Fort Hood. Now back to you.
All right, we're back here at the live desk on the phone line right now with Bob Morsink. He happened to have been on the phone with his son when those shootings went down, his son there at Fort Hood. Mr. Morsink, thanks for joining us tonight.
You're welcome.
Can you just tell me, what does your son do? Where was he when the shootings occurred?
He was in the Readiness Center, and he had gotten there about Monday, I believe, late Sunday or Monday from California. That's the unit he's attached to, and they're getting prepared to deploy to Afghanistan. And I had talked to his wife had talked to him a couple days ago, and just normal small talk, everything's fine. And I hadn't talked to him in a few days, and he happened to call me this afternoon. I was at his house raking leaves for him.
Where's his house?
He lives in Jenison.
Okay.
And his wife was working, and so I started to talk, and immediately he had to go. It just that quick, and hung up the phone, and that I thought that was kind of strange. That hadn't happened, but I don't know what's all going on there. And then I heard the news later. Now, my daughter-in-law, his wife, has spoken with him briefly, and he's okay, but they're all locked down, and they're in a certain room and stuff, but he must have been very close to where some of the action was.
All right. Could you hear anything as he was just saying, I've got to go, or what?
No, I heard nothing in the background or anything, just a quick, abrupt end of the call, which isn't normally the way it goes, but
you bet.
Yeah, I'm comforted to know that he's okay, and I know that our Lord is watching over him. I know that he is.
And we're all thankful for that. We've talked to several families and people who are there on the base, or we're trying to get to family on the base. And thank goodness, at least so far, all those from West Michigan who we know about are okay. Rick Elbin is, we've got a news conference going on. We're going to go live right now to that news conference in Texas.
As a matter of policy, we do not discuss specific force protection measures that are in place on Fort Carson at any time. However, I will tell you and assure you that appropriate force protection measures are in place on Fort Carson at this time. The safety of our soldiers, families, civilians who work on and live on Fort Carson is of the utmost importance to the leadership of the 4th Infantry Division and Fort Carson.
All righty, that was reaction you were hearing from another Fort Carson. We talked to the Armory here in West Michigan. We've talked to a lot of the recruiting offices. We asked them, are you taking any special precautions? They said no, we're all aware of what's happening, but everything is status quo for us here. So there's no special lockdown or other security measures out of the ordinary locally. Rick Elbin has been, as you know, if you've been watching all afternoon, he's been on this story as well. Rick, what's the latest you've uncovered?
I want to follow up on what you were talking about. no local bases, not Selfridge, not Gaylord, not any of the places you might think of are taking any special action, although some bigger Army bases, some bigger military bases did go to a preventative measure, but not like the lockdown that's happening at Fort Hood. So people know what's going on there. People are being told to go into their residences. We talked to some folks just a little bit ago. They're being told turn off their air conditioning, turn off their air intake of any kind, because at the time they were still worried about a larger attack, maybe some type of a chemical or a bio threat that could be in the area. But we know a lot more now. We do know the tragedy that at least 12 people are dead, more than 30 are injured, and we know now that the U.S. Army says one of their own, a U.S. Army major, somebody who has been in the military for a long time, Malik Nadal Hassan, is the person they believe was carrying 2 handguns when they went into this center. It's a transition center where people are getting ready to be shipped off to Afghanistan and Iraq. We have learned independently he is a medical services officer, and we're being told by other sources that he was a mental health professional within the U.S. Army. Again, this is Fort Hood. It is a sprawling base. It is a population about the size of Holland, Michigan. 12 people in the U.S. military have been killed. More than 30 have been injured, and the U.S. Army is telling us tonight that one of their own, someone who had served long enough to be a major in the Army, is the person they believe is primarily responsible. Susan?
All right, Rick, thank you. I know we're going to continue our coverage, live coverage. Also, we're going to be carrying this story. Then NBC Nightly News will pick it up at 6:30. You can go to woodtv.com. We're going to have Twittering going on, cover it live. Our sister station in Texas is covering it. They're on the scene in the area, and you can follow their live reports as well. Back to you, Brian.